Hey guys, go make yourself a cup of your favorite hot beverage because it is tea time. I am having herbal tea with jasmine again. Today I would like to talk to you about simple living with less, minimalism in a way. Sometimes I get comments on my videos, especially when I do like more personal videos or vlog type videos, from people that say that they love watching my kind of simple life. And I feel like to many people that might be somewhat of an insult, but to me it is absolutely not. I get exactly what those people mean, and I actually deliberately make my life that way. We live in an age where everything has to be faster, bigger, better, more, louder, and I feel like there's a constant race to the next big thing, you know, and you have to constantly be moving forward at a really quick pace. And throughout my life I have come to find out and accept that, of course, took a little bit of time as well, that I am a person who enjoys peace and quiet more than anything, and I don't really care much for the red race to, you know, success and possessions and fame and lots of money. So over the past few years, I guess you could say, I have been getting more and more curious about minimalism. I know minimalism is very trendy right now, and there's loads of different sources about it, and the information you can find about it ranges on like a spectrum from minimalism, like from capsule wardrobes all the way down to getting rid of your bed and zero waste and things like that. Even though I wouldn't call myself a minimalist at all, I do think I am gravitating kind of towards that lifestyle more and more as I get older, and it is something that I can very much pick things out of that I can apply to my own life and that I feel like enrich my life and make my life better. So I guess to start I should tell you a little bit about where I kind of began. So as a child, I loved having loads of things around me all the time, having all of my kind of possessions. It gave me a sense of security and safety, a kind of certainty in a way. I really loved having all of my little things around me, and I had to have everything on display at all times. My bedroom was a mess. It was so full of all of my trinkets and things that were really special and important to me. When I cleaned my room or when my mom cleaned my room, it didn't feel good to me. It didn't feel cozy enough. I just really loved having stuff just scattered everywhere, and that's what felt most comfortable to me. I also loved acquiring more things. I loved getting presents. I loved pretty much anything that was pink, sparkly, fluffy. I was that girl. Slowly as I got older, that moved from, everything pink and sparkly to more kind of useful things, I guess, and I started collecting things like makeup and notebooks and clothing, and I just loved having loads and loads of that. But I loved collecting things, just having loads. Even though I wasn't necessarily using everything at the same time, I just loved having loads of things. And then when I turned 18, I moved out of my parents' house and I became independent, not only in my living situation, but also financially to a certain degree. And when I did first move out, it was a time when my YouTube was doing really well, and I had just started university, so I had my scholarship as well. So I was pretty well off for a beginning student, I have to say, and I enjoyed it. Now, luckily my parents raised a responsible human being, so I always knew to save the majority of my income and just kind of, spend responsibly, but I definitely loved having the freedom that I had just recently acquired. And then this is actually what many YouTubers dread, I think. The algorithm change. There was a big algorithm change in YouTube and my channel pretty much crashed and burned, and I lost the majority of my income. Not too long after that, I also graduated university and I also didn't have my scholarship anymore. I had also by then moved to a different house which had a much higher rent, and all in all, I just had a lot less to spend. Luckily, again, I was responsible, I was good with money, I knew how to handle money, and I knew how to stretch a little bit a very long way, so I had still lived comfortably off of very little. But that did make me kind of realize how little I actually needed to live a comfortable life. And it actually felt really good. You know, of course, not having financial insecurities, but just knowing that having so little was plenty for me and I could still live a happy and kind of comfortable and fulfilled life if I just fulfilled a few basic needs. So at this time, I was living in a small studio apartment. My entire house was 17 square meters. So obviously I didn't have a lot of room to store my things. So everything that I moved from my parents' house was just the stuff that I needed the most, or that was kind of the most special to me, and everything else I left behind. So I had this really curated kind of collection of things that were of most value to me in my life. I grew to really love living like that. Just having the things around me that are important to me in one way or another. And when I say important, it doesn't necessarily mean functional. I feel like this is a big thing with minimalism, or something that is very emphasized kind of when minimalism is discussed. The amount of things you own, or kind of like only having things that are useful. I'd say a rather large part of what I own has sentimental value to me rather than, you know, like monetary value or usefulness. For example, I love watching minimalist videos nowadays. I don't know, it's just kind of like a hole in YouTube I've been sucked into, but so often people talk about, you know, like 15 things you can get rid of today, and then when they mention books, I'm like, excuse you, you monster. Books are of so much added value to me. I love having my books. And no, I might not ever read my, you know, old Irish grammar ever again, but it is gorgeous and it has great memories. And I shed blood, sweat and tears over that thing, and it is just, it has great value to me. Also, I come from a rather artistic family, so I have a lot of kind of handmade things from loved ones that are special to me as well. And some people may feel like they clutter up my home, but to me it doesn't feel like that at all. These are things that give me joy every time I look at them, and they are important to me, and I really want to have them around me. To me, minimalism, for the lack of a better word, I guess, is to just not have too much, or not have things that are of no value to you in any way, and most importantly, not always wanting more. I have come to a point, I came to this point a few years back, where I feel like it's alright now. I have everything I need, I'm happy with what I have now, and there is so much more I could have. I mean, I have a small tiny house, 40 square meters right now, 17 before this, and I have everything I need. And honestly, that feeling of being satisfied and happy with what you already have, and not always wanting more and kind of striving for the next bigger material possession, is such a good feeling. And of course there are things that I'd like to get, or, you know, things I'd like to upgrade around my house, but in general, I am really happy with everything I own right now. So one of the reasons why I like living in a small space, because it started as a necessity, it still pretty much is. I live in the Netherlands, which is a tiny country with a lot of people in it. And I live in a city as well, which means there's even more people on an even smaller space. So houses just are pretty small over here. Something, you know, I'll have to accept unless I get super stinking rich. But I actually wouldn't really want to live in a bigger house anyway, because I love the feeling of a smaller space. I still like the feeling that I did as a kid of kind of being like in a little den, or like your own little cave, you know? A smaller space is much easier to maintain. It takes less time to clean. Yeah, I don't know, I just feel comfortable in smaller spaces, I guess. So I find myself slowly gravitating towards a more and more minimalist lifestyle as I go. Although I am absolutely certain I will never be one of those people that take it to the extreme of, like, you know, only owning like 50 items in total. I could never be that person. Like I mentioned, I attach too much value to things, especially my sentimental items. But I also have a category of items that many kind of like online minimalists that I've come across talk about decluttering, and that is items for dream scenarios. So the best example I think I can give for this is I have a big box of art supplies that I use maybe once or twice a year, maybe, but they are of such big value to me. Art, especially fine arts, and being creative in any way, so arts, crafts, just creating things with my hands, is something that has been a gigantic part of my life from the moment I was born up until pretty much when I went to university, when I found myself having less time and less energy to create in that way. Also, as I became more involved in YouTube and more of my time went into creating YouTube videos, which is of course also a form of creating, but it's not like hands-on. My art supplies, just looking at them, holding them, and knowing that I have them and I have the option to make art whenever I, you know, feel like it or get a spur of inspiration, just makes me so happy. So even though it is not necessarily very useful in my life the way it is now, I still have the hope of, you know, one day having more time to do art again, and therefore I keep my art supplies. So I don't really know if I could call myself a minimalist. I feel like in some ways yes, but maybe not entirely. I don't know. What do you think? Now I should say that I don't really care for labels much, not at all actually. Something else I have been simplifying a lot lately, or been very kind of more conscious with, is my life, or kind of my activities, what I do with my life and how I balance everything in my life. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I like to live a simple life. I prefer a very structured kind of routine type of life. I feel most comfortable in that. I feel like I strive best in that, and it brings me the most happiness. So of course, as a person and as a citizen and as a entrepreneur, there are a few things I must do, even if they don't necessarily bring me joy, but I have to do them, you know, in order to be able to maintain the other things that do bring me joy, like be an entrepreneur, be a citizen of this country and this city, things like that. So obviously I will fulfill my duties when it comes to that, but things that I can choose to do or not to do in my life, I have been much more conscious about, you know, what activities and things I choose to let into my life. Over the years, I have learned pretty well what brings me joy and what doesn't, and what kind of makes me feel good and what makes me really stressed and just doesn't bring much added value. And I try to live my life according to that. So I sent out a photo on Instagram, as always, asking you guys if you had any specific questions or topics you would like me to talk about in this video. So let's go through and see what you guys sent in. Elsa asks how to maximize space while living in a tiny apartment, in a tiny bedroom apartment. Definitely vertical space, go up, high cabinets. That's my biggest tip I can give you, maximize all vertical space. Christine says, I have lived in small spaces for a while. I feel like it's made me less materialistic and content with simple things, stronger and smarter about how I spend money and organize my space and life. Do you feel like living in a small space made a positive impact on your life? So this is pretty much exactly what I said in the beginning. I got kind of forced into this at the beginning, and then I found out I feel so good in this. You know, having a smaller space with fewer things, realizing that I was completely happy and content with that small space and those few things. It's a very kind of reassuring thing to have and to know. Jasmine asks, how do you do so that things stay in its place and don't get messy? A place for everything and everything in its place. Whenever something new comes into my home, I give it a new place inside the house right away, and then that is where it lives from then on. And very regularly, at least kind of like every night before I go to bed, but usually right after I finish a task, I try to just quickly pick up after myself, put everything back in its place, and that's kind of the easiest way to maintain it, you know, not let the clutter accumulate. Do you think minimalism can be too extreme and lead to a life without memories and personal traits? Sometimes I feel that way, and I prefer to see minimalism as a way to balance the scale of consumerism versus a life too sterile. Definitely, I definitely agree. Like I mentioned, many of the kind of minimalism videos I see on YouTube, I'm like, oh no, this is not for me. Even though there are certainly still things in my house that I can declutter, and it's something I'm still working on, I'm still in the middle of the process. Living with so little, like some of these people do, that doesn't feel good to me right now. Like I mentioned, my kind of sentimental things bring me so much joy and so much added value in my life, and I wouldn't want to be without them. So yeah. Definitely agree with that. How do you keep your clothes at a minimum? Do you have a capsule wardrobe, or do you have a rule that says so many things in, so many things out? Not necessarily, I don't really have a rule, but this is this is actually just a really practical one for me. I have a wardrobe of a certain size, and as soon as it doesn't fit anymore, I have to start, you know, finding a solution for that. And making a new pile somewhere else is not a good solution. Just all my clothes have to fit inside that wardrobe, and I allow myself one seasonal change, so I have like winter clothes and summer clothes, but within those categories it all has to fit into my wardrobe. And if it doesn't anymore, usually it'll start to annoy me, and I will just pick some things out that I think I can get rid of. But in general, I just try not to buy too many new clothes anyway. I think I buy maybe like 5 items per season, often even less than that. Oh, and another thing about my particular closet is I feel like I should hang on to some things even if I don't necessarily wear them a lot anymore, because I do certain types of videos and blog posts for as like my job. So for example, I have my style revival videos, and I feel like I need kind of a wider variety of types of clothing for that, because I wouldn't be able to do all of those videos if I just used the items I wear all the time, which is pretty much just plain black sweaters and black jeans. And the same goes for like outfit posts and everything. So I like to keep a larger variety than what I necessarily actually use in my day-to-day life. How often do you purge your belongings, and is there anything you continue to have to purge? I don't necessarily schedule this. Like sometimes I will just wake up and be like, oh, I have to get rid of things. I'm sure you know that feeling. And it usually happens kind of like around spring. Yeah, in general, when the seasons change, I tend to get this feeling of like, you know, I have to change things. But like I mentioned, I have come to a point now where I'm just kind of happy with what I own. So I don't generally find myself getting rid of things unless they're broken or have kind of lost their value in some way. Also, as far as purging goes, ideally I'd like to, you know, not have to purge at all, because I always strive to not bring anything into my house that I don't actually need or want. So the only thing that's kind of difficult when it comes to that is I get sent pressed samples every now and then for my job again, so those I have to go through pretty regularly. But other than that, I always try to make sure to only buy what I need. Alright, so I'm going to end this video here. It's getting pretty long and I've just been rambling on. I didn't really have a plan going into this video, so I hope it's not just all over the place. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little tea time chat with me, guys. Do be sure to leave any thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to continue our conversation there. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for loads more videos. If you would like to support me on Patreon, I will have a link in the description box below. Thank you so much. There will be another video here that you may also enjoy. You can go watch next. Thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!